You've been driving behind Freightliner trucks your entire life. On the highway, at rest stops, at every loading dock in every city in America, Freightliner. The name sounds about as American as John Deere or General Motors. But here's the thing nobody tells you. That truck is not American. The engine inside it is not American. The school bus that picked up your kids this morning probably is not American either. They are all owned by the same company, a German company. And the way they took control of nearly half of America's trucking industry involves $36 billion in corporate deception, a billionaire fraud lawsuit, and an acquisition strategy so quiet that most Americans still have no idea it happened. The full picture connects to something you probably touched, rode in, or stood behind at a crosswalk this morning. 4 out of every 10 Class 8 trucks sold in America right now trace back to a single parent company headquartered in Stuttgart. The most common semi on American highways was built under the authority of the company that makes Mercedes-Benz, and they didn't get there by outcompeting American manufacturers. They got there by buying them, one by one, over 20 years, while keeping every brand name American so you would never notice. But let's start with the first move, the one nobody saw coming in 1981. In 1942, a trucker named Leland James couldn't find a manufacturer willing to build the aluminum chassis trucks he wanted for his company, Consolidated Freightways, so he built his own. That company was Freightliner, Portland, Oregon, American-born, American-built. By the 1970s, it was one of the most respected names in American trucking. But by the early 1980s, Consolidated Freightways was struggling financially, and in 1981, a buyer appeared. Daimler-Benz AG, the German company behind Mercedes-Benz, purchased Freightliner outright. Not in a hostile takeover, not in a public bidding war, quietly. Within a decade, Daimler poured its engineering and financial resources into Freightliner. Sales more than doubled. By 1992, Freightliner was number 1 in the entire North American heavy-duty truck market, a German-owned company selling more big rigs in America than any American manufacturer. But that was just the opening move, because in the 1990s, Daimler went on a buying spree that reads like a corporate shopping list. In 1995, they bought American LaFrance, the firefighting vehicle company. In 1997, they purchased Ford Motor Company's entire heavy truck division. In 1998, they acquired Thomas Built Buses, the leading school bus manufacturer in North America, a family-owned company making buses since 1916. In 2000, they bought Western Star Trucks for roughly $1 billion Canadian dollars. 6 major American brands were absorbed in under a decade. But those were just the vehicle brands. The real power move was the engine. Daimler did not just want to build the trucks. They wanted to build the heart inside every truck. And the heart they went after was the most American diesel engine ever made. Detroit Diesel was born inside General Motors in 1938. In the late 1980s, General Motors engineers developed the Series 60, a heavy-duty diesel engine that became the single most popular in the entire North American Class 8 market. Between 1988 and 1993, Detroit Diesel's on-highway market share went from 3% to 33%. 3% to 33% in 5 years on the strength of one engine. But General Motors was hemorrhaging money, and Detroit Diesel was sold off to Penske Corporation for roughly $300 million, a crown jewel gone in a fire sale. Then in October 2000, Daimler Chrysler appeared with a $423 million offer and bought 100% of Detroit Diesel. The announcement from Stuttgart was blunt. The acquisition made Daimler Chrysler the world's leading manufacturer of heavy and medium-duty on-highway diesel engines. The engine that powered American trucking now answered to Germany. But here's the part that makes this genuinely strange. Daimler was only able to do this because of a deal they closed 2 years earlier, one that is now studied in business schools as one of the most audacious corporate deceptions of the 20th century. In 1998, Daimler-Benz and Chrysler Corporation announced a merger of equals. Chrysler Chief Executive Officer Robert Eaton insisted on it. Equal CO chairman, a 50-50 board split. Daimler Chief Executive Officer Jürgen Schrempp agreed to everything. The deal closed in November 1998 for $36 billion. By October 2000, Schrempp told the Financial Times the truth. The merger of equals was never real. It was, in his own words, a public relations device. Daimler had always intended Chrysler to become a subsidiary answering to Stuttgart. The equal partnership was a story told to get the Americans to sign. Billionaire Kirk Kerkorian, Chrysler's third largest shareholder, sued for fraud. And this connects to something much closer to your daily life than a boardroom in Stuttgart. But we will get to that. The Chrysler deception explains how they got the power. It does not explain why nobody noticed what they were building. Here's the part that explains everything. When Daimler openly took over Chrysler, the cultural clash was catastrophic. Executives quit, morale cratered. Schrempp became a cautionary tale in every MBA program in the country. But on the trucking side, something completely different happened. Silence. Daimler kept every American brand name intact. Freightliner stayed Freightliner. Western Star stayed Western Star. Thomas Built stayed Thomas Built. Detroit. Diesel kept its name for over a decade before quietly shortening to just Detroit in 2011. The factories stayed in Portland and North Carolina. The workforce stayed American. The dealerships stayed American. No rebranding campaigns, no Stuttgart executives in the marketing. Daimler had learned from the Chrysler disaster. When you openly take over an American institution, Americans push back. Therefore, with trucks, they stayed invisible. And it worked, because American trucking runs on brand loyalty, unlike almost any other industry. Drivers build their identity around their truck brand the way sports fans build it around teams. That loyalty lives at the brand level, not the parent company. A Kenworth driver does not think about PACCAR. A Mack driver rarely thinks about Volvo Group. Daimler could acquire brand after brand, and as long as the name on the hood did not change, nobody looked up. Now think about the last 24 hours. You drove to work. There is a good chance you were behind a Freightliner Cascadia, the single most common semi on the highway, over 1 million sold since 2007, German-owned. Your kids climbed onto a yellow school bus. If it was a Thomas Built, and roughly 1 in 3 is, it was built by a Daimler subsidiary in North Carolina. That Amazon package on your porch arrived in a van, likely riding on a Freightliner custom chassis, German-owned. The groceries in your fridge rode in a truck that was statistically most likely a Freightliner. The engine powering it carries the name Detroit, which sounds like the most American brand in industrial history. It was born inside General Motors. Now it is a Daimler subsidiary. Ford used to make heavy trucks. Daimler bought that division in 1997 and retired the brand entirely by 2009. It is gone. In 2024, Daimler Truck North America generated roughly 24 billion euros from this market alone. Trucks, buses, engines, chassis, all flowing back to Stuttgart. So here is where you actually land. You were driving behind that truck on the highway. Maybe you glanced at the chrome letters and thought Freightliner, just another American rig. But what you were actually looking at was a 40-year acquisition strategy launched from Stuttgart. A company that bought America's truck brand when it was vulnerable, bought the school buses, bought Ford's heavy truck line, pulled off a $36 billion merger that was never equal, got sued for fraud by a billionaire, then bought the most popular diesel engine in North American trucking history right out from under General Motors. And they kept every brand name American, so you would never connect the dots. That is not just a truck in front of you. That is the most successful, quiet industrial acquisition in modern American history. The school bus at the crosswalk, the engine under the hood, the chassis under the delivery van, all Stuttgart, all invisible. And if you think trucks are complicated, wait until you find out who actually controls the water treatment infrastructure in American cities. That one is even stranger.